inside Abuja. Abuja, oh yeah, Abuja. Welcome to inside Abuja. Abuja, oh yeah, Abuja. You are welcome, alright, to inside Abuja. Abuja, oh yeah, Abuja. You are welcome to inside Abuja.
It's good.
Well, my guest today on Dateline Abuja discussing substance abuse, we have engineer Aisha Aliu Fayeda. I got that right? Tafida. Yes. She's the project coordinator, PADA, Parents Against Drug Abuse, and the VP Community Intervention Network of Drugs. You're welcome to Dateline Abuja. Thank you so much. And I have with me Dr. Vincent Udenzo. He's a UK-based consultant and also a psychiatrist. You're welcome to Dateline Abuja. And we also have the last person, Dr. Dayaba Shoibu. She is the Northern Coordinator, Reconnect Health Development Initiative. You're welcome to Dateline Abuja. Well, today we're discussing the increase of drug abuse and we say substance abuse, yeah? So what would you define substance abuse as?
I'll look at substance abuse as the tendency for an individual to engage in the use of a substance. That substance could be drug or alcohol, to the extent that it's actually possible of causing the person harm. It's possible that it's going to interfere with the person's normal functioning. And this could also lead to a state of dependence, where you would now say that this person is now dependent. And at the point of dependence, the person cannot really help themselves anymore and would need help. Okay.
Now we're talking about substance. Can you actually differentiate between drugs and substance for people who really don't understand the difference?
Well, depending on which school of thought you belong to, basically we'll say drug and alcohol are all substances.
Okay. Engineer, you are the your project coordinator for Parents Against. Now we have a lot against drug abuse. We have a lot of cases in universities because when we went around with this talking to students. What is your NGO actually doing about trying to create awareness for parents, especially looking out for parents whose children are involved in drugs?
Well, when you come to parents, most parents are in denial. So what we do, we try to go to school and sensitize them. Okay. And then through the school, we get to the parents and also get to know if the children are on drugs. We don't really open up, but we are still getting there. When you come to the youths in the university, we do the same thing, sensitization. Once they come out of...
You do campaigns?
Yes, we do sensitizations campaigns. We educate them. We do try to rehabilitate the ones we have. We don't have a rehab center, but we refer them to where we think they can get help.
How successful has that been?
Yes, it's been successful, but as of now, we still have relapses cases. They go to the rehab centers and they relapse again. So we are looking for a way where we can change their, aftercare. Okay. Aftercare program. This is what we are looking for now. Not really treatment is going on. We have centers, good ones.
And the parents are actually responding to?
Yes, they are responding to. They are going to rehab centers. But the cases we are having is the relapse. They will go to the rehab centers, do what they are supposed to do, come out well, and then they go back to the same cycle.
Why do you think so?
Why do I think so? Is because they are, if the other children are not treated in the school, they still go back to the same cycle, and then they still get influence. So we try as much as possible if we can break this cycle and then maybe change their cycle.
Or even change the school.
Abroad. Yeah, but some parents will not want to. Like we have a case of a child who goes to a school and they get back and said there's cult members there. So we were threatening the parents, and the parents were scared. So they had no option but to
take him back.
Yeah, and then so these are the cases we are having. So we are trying to see how we can work hoping to connect
Okay.
through Dr. Vincent's center to see if we can do aftercare.
Okay, aftercare.
Aftercare. We don't know yet, but we are still
working
working with something.
Oh, beautiful. Well, Dr. Dayaba Shaibu, you're the Northern Coordinator for Reconnect Health Development Initiative. Now, we know that the increase of HIV has to do with substance and drug abuse. What is your NGO actually doing to create more awareness for this? Especially in the northern area.
Okay, actually in the north, most of the substances of abuse are not injectables. Okay. The relationship between drugs and HIV has to do with the injectable drugs because of the risky behaviors and all. The biggest problem we have are other substances that are not injectables. And the biggest thing we've done so far is the work we're doing with the Northern Governor's Wives Forum. The Northern Governor's Wives deemed it fit as a group, as a team, to come together and fight this substance use disorder. So they are deployed Reconnect as one of their consultants to help them do that. So we take care of the technical aspects, drug plan, do the advocacy training and all that. So we're working on setting up a helpline, a national helpline. At least we start with the north, hoping that the south will emulate. What this helpline is supposed to do is we have a helpline where someone who is struggling with substance use can call in and say, for example, I'm struggling with addiction. Let me use the word addiction. And then over the phone, someone at the other line, at the other end of the line, can tell him, okay, for example, how many bottles of codeine do you take in a day? And the person says, in a day I can take 10 bottles. And we say, okay, can we take it this week? For the next 1 week, can we try taking 8 bottles, for example? And then you see harm reduction.
Okay.
Harm reduction. So the advantage is there's no issue of stigma because I don't even know who I'm talking to.
Yes.
And then there's no bias because no one is judging you.
Yes.
And then you feel you're connecting with somebody there and no one is telling you, see, you just need to stop. Because that's what we hear at home. So that's what we're working on. And we're hoping, at least we can reach out to a lot of people because even the farmer, right on his farm, has access to a phone.
Yes.
So if you do that.
So basically just creating more awareness, NGOs, yes.
Apart from awareness, intervention. So you're intervening actually, apart from just going to tell them drug is harmful and all that. You're helping
like a help center. Beautiful. Well, Dr. Denza, we have long-term and short-term effects of drug abuse. Being a psychiatrist, can you actually explain that to us?
Yes. For the short term will really be about how it affects you. So, for example, some drugs will make you feel high, get euphoric, and it's quite pleasurable initially when you take the drug. The problem becomes when the long-term effect of chronic drug use sets in. It has psychological complications, it has physical complications, it has social complications.
You want to explain a bit?
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about physical complications, for example. Somebody who is an alcoholic can actually develop a liver problem from chronic alcohol use.
Yes.
So from that alcohol that you normally enjoy, all of a sudden you develop a liver problem. It can become cirrhotic and it can even develop cancer from that, long term. Now, let's talk about psychological. There are drugs like alcohol again, which can be a depressant. So you use alcohol, you feel better initially, you feel great, and after a period of time, then when the alcohol wears off, it takes your mood down and you start feeling depressed. So there is a psychological part to that. And the psychological part could also be as a result of the social complications. So think of someone who's a cocaine addict, right? You're spending all your money on cocaine, you're not paying your rent. All of a sudden you're having problems with your wife, your relationship breaks down, right? Because of tardiness, not going to work, you lose your job. So that now starts to become a social complication to this chronic drug use, which can lead you to becoming depressed, and sometimes to now wish away this problem, you even take more drugs to keep you a bit euphoric, or at least in a different state of mind, so you can forget all your problems. So that cycle perpetuates
And it's expensive.
dependent. It's expensive, and that's why sometimes people don't indulge in behaviors that are inappropriate, like stealing, to be able to fund
That
the habit.
lifestyle. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now she just mentioned codeine. Now, you know, we actually know that some pharmacists or they don't sell them. It's not allowed to buy codeine. That's the cough syrup. Now, but we still have some people who sell them. You know, what do you think the government needs to do more to actually remove codeine out of the streets?
Right. The government can legislate, but legislating is not enough. The enforcers have to be empowered. For example, NDLEA. NDLEA is a fantastic organization, yet with a lot of expectation, but very little funding. So the government needs to put its money where its mouth is. Fund NDLEA appropriately, and I believe NDLEA can then work in reducing, you understand, even the black market sales of some of these substances, or like codeine. Because even though you say it should only be on prescription only, it's available on the black market.
And it's cheap.
And it's cheap. You know, people are selling gallons of it, and people are having codeine parties. So, you know, it's not enough to just ban it there. So you have to make sure it's not even available. And that is where the law enforcement agencies come in.
Beautiful. Well, we'll be wrapping up very soon. Still coming down to your NGO. Now we're talking about creating awareness. You said you wanted like an aftercare.
Yes.
That's what the government. Do you think we have enough rehabilitation centers? Now, you know, with when we're talking earlier, you actually mentioned something about rehabilitation centers, but it may not be everybody who is an addict that should go to a rehabilitation center. So you talked about the aftercare. Do you think we have enough facilities for aftercare, rehabilitation, and what the differences are?
We have rehabilitation centers. Maybe I can say in Abuja, I know about Sinus and one or two others. But as
Are they private?
They are private, of course. But as I said, you know, it's not all rehabilitation centers that know really what to do. Because, you know, when you think about drugs, people think of something bad and then, you know, victimize someone and so on. Make them feel like they are a victim, they are criminals and so on. But some centers where I was before, I work with these centers where you don't victimize someone, etc. So when you talk about rehab centers, you think of which one is good and which one is just a rehab center. We don't have
enough.
We don't have enough.
Okay, so now you talked about actually you guys creating care and a helpline. How successful? We actually need that. So how successful has that been? And would you comment? Is it a government project? She said the rehabilitation center actually private. So if I'm saying I don't have money, but I have a sister or a brother who is a junkie, they can't actually go to a government rehabilitation. What does your helpline? How does your helpline come in? Is it private as well?
Okay, the helpline is a project for the Northern Governor's Wives Forum. So I wouldn't say it's government per se.
So
it's the governor's wives that said to give it back.
But is it accessible to the general public?
Yeah, it's for the general public.
Okay,
That's
beautiful.
Yeah, it's for the general public. Anybody.
Okay.
And it's free. They're trying to make it
free, yeah.
so you don't need to spend your airtime.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah,
well, we're wrapping up. I want to ask you this last question. We have what's the difference between a rehabilitation center and an aftercare? And who should go to a rehabilitation center?
Right. Rehabilitation centers provide rehabilitation, and many of them will have both inpatient care and outpatient care, and most of the times aftercare once you finish your rehabilitation, right? Now, for you to benefit from an inpatient rehab, it usually means that you're dependent on drug to the point that you're not able to help yourself anymore. You understand? If you stop taking it, you have withdrawal symptoms, and so we need to put you in a place that will not allow you to have access to those drugs, so you can go through detox and break that cycle.
Okay, that's a rehabilitation center.
That is detox.
Okay.
Detox is the first phase of your inpatient rehab. For some people, you can have detox. Detox is so for example, people that take codeine. Once you've taken codeine for a very long time, if you don't take codeine for 1 or 2 days, you start having stomach cramps.
Wow.
Your nose start running. You get uncomfortable. That the only way to feel okay is by taking another bottle of codeine.
Wow.
So how does the person stop?
Yeah.
So what happens is this: for the detox, when you come into a health facility, a rehabilitation center, we can then stop the supply of codeine, then give you something to take that will make you not have that withdrawal symptom while you're coming off the codeine. So you're comfortable as it wears off. So you now break that cycle that requires you to keep taking codeine to feel better. At that point, some people can be discharged because the detox has finished. It might take about 10 days, and then they can start outpatient treatment. For some, you need to keep them in rehab center for up to 3 months to have rehabilitation and empower them psychologically to even be able to say no when they leave, to deal with the peer pressure factors and all that. Now, what Ajia was referring to when she talked about aftercare is this. From my experience and most other experience, when you finish that 3 months and you go out, it's not everyone that's able to stay sober. Some people will go back. So what plan do we have in place to support these people to stay sober, to support sobriety when they've been discharged from rehab centers? Such aftercare programs have been designed, but part of the problem is that sometimes even the parents themselves say, "Oh, my son is very good now." They feel coming back for follow-up is waste of money until the person relapses. So it's important to empower the individual, the families, to know that this aftercare plan has to be adhered to.
It's part of the treatment.
It's part of the treatment, and that is one of the failure rates in rehab. Once they get discharged, people do not stick to the aftercare plan, and that's something like Father is talking about, that they've realized this and they want to do something. So instead of just talking about rehab, what happens to people after rehab? You understand? And that's why I said that Father and Reconnect are trying to come up with a program that will sensitize people on the importance of aftercare.
Do you think we also have enough rehabilitation centers in Nigeria that are not private?
Oh no. Just to clarify, there are a lot of government hospitals that provide psychiatry, and rehab. But the problem is this: they are not enough. You have a lot of consultants, Nigerian consultants, that do good jobs in government hospitals, but they are not enough. They need more psychiatrists, more psychologists, more centers, more beds. Because the mainstay of treatment is government, because it's cheaper, to the public, because it's subsidized treatment. Private sector is probably different. Then some NGOs do very good work also, because they provide treatment sometimes free to the public. But then, how many NGOs are funded to do this kind of work? Because donors are not, neither fund.
Do you have any last words to say for people who are using drugs? We know that they say people who take drugs are being witch hunted, and maybe instead of going to proper rehabilitation centers or aftercares, they actually go to maybe spiritual houses, or they say it's a witch program or witch hunting in quotes. Do you have any final word for parents?
What I would say there is we see addiction as a sickness, the same way you see diabetes or hypertension. I always tell parents or caregivers that if someone comes down with diabetes, do you say someone was bewitched? And the bottom line is the person who has a substance use disorder needs help, and he should get help appropriately. So I think we still have a lot of work to do in the area of advocacy and enlightenment.
Thank you. What about for parents? Do you have a final word for parents, especially since you are dealing with parents?
The only message I have for them is it's never too late. Parents should listen to their children and they should monitor them and then go to the nearest rehab centers and find out and see if they can see any misbehavior is in their children.
Thank you guys so much for being part of Dateline and creating more awareness on drug and substance abuse. Well, I've been talking to engineer Aisha Aliyu Tafida, she's the project coordinator, Parents Against Drug Abuse, PADA, and VP Community Intervention Network of Drugs. Thank you so much for being part of Dateline. And am I right? I've been talking to Dr. Vincent Udenza. He's a UK-based consultant and psychiatrist. Thank you so much for being part of us today. And also Dr. Dayaba Shoibu. She's the Northern Coordinator, Reconnect Health Development Initiative. Thank you guys so much for being part of Dateline Abuja.
Thank you.
Well, you've been watching Dateline Abuja. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.